The day before, more like the day after everybody realized this game was a complete scam product, or the day after the developers released a game that's completely different from what they advertised, or the day after these shady devs try to pull a fast one on everybody. Either way you look at it, the consensus is overwhelmingly the same sentiment. And that's because the day before is a massive scam that the developers falsely advertised in order to pull a fast one on their player base. And for the most part, the developers have been completely silent on the matter and have not responded to any of the negative backlash that the game's been receiving. I mean, why would they? On launch, this game had an all-time peak of almost 40,000 players. Now hopefully many of those sales were rightfully refunded, but even then, the devs still made off with a boatload of money while putting in the bare minimum effort. And what's even more staggering are the amounts of people actually defending the day before, saying that it's actually a good game. Just take a look at some of these Steam discussion posts. Give this game a chance, guys. This will age like fine wine. You people are so ungrateful for this small indie developer team. This is not a scam. Jeez Louise, these people must be huffing that premium A1 copium because this game is terrible. And this is just the Steam reviews. The official Discord they have is on fire with even more people trying to defend the game. With all this being said, I took it upon myself to purchase this game with my own money in order to see if any of the controversy and bad press was true. And spoiler alert, it is.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.
So breaking news, as I'm recording this video, the developer Fntastic has just entirely shut down their studio only 4 days after the day before was released. They have also nuked their official Discord server and deleted everything from their social medias, including YouTube, Twitter, and even LinkedIn. Also, Steam has officially removed the purchase button while also giving everyone full refunds no matter how much time was played. The reason for the shutdown is because the day before was such a huge financial disaster that the studio could no longer operate properly. And funnily enough, they said in their own statement, quote, "We apologize if we didn't meet your expectations. We did everything within our power, but unfortunately we miscalculated our capabilities." Yeah, I think the word miscalculated is a bit of an understatement. It's more like misrepresented, or you know, just straight up lying. So W situation overall, we got the good ending. Anyways, back to the video. Now, for the people who are not aware of these developer shenanigans, this actually isn't their first rodeo when it comes to releasing unfinished games and abandoning them. You see, back in March of 2018, these developers released a little title called Dead Dozen, which is a pretty generic looking first-person co-op survival horror game where the objective is to survive, I think? Look, I'm no developer, but I've seen a fair share of Unreal Engine asset flips in my life, and I can say that I'm 99% sure that this game was an unfinished asset flip that the developers tried to pass off as early access. And it wasn't just me, a bunch of other people felt the same way because this game received some pretty mixed reviews when it came out. Many of the negative reviews stating that the game was laggy, shallow, buggy, and empty. It seemed like many players caught onto this facade of a game quite early on, and the developers would prove them right by releasing the final patch for Dead Dozen in June that same year, and completely abandoning the project 4 months after it was listed on Steam. This project would never get a full official release, and it was completely delisted off of Steam in 2021. But this wouldn't be the only time Fntastic would do something like this, because in 2021 they released a game called Prop Night, which is basically the Garry's Mod prop hunt game mode made into a full game, which also received some mixed reviews, but to their credit it seems like Prop Night had some more favorable reviews than Dead Dozen did. And to give the devs credit, they actually did work on this game for 2 years up until May of this year, where they shut down the server so they could focus on the day before. But based on Fntastic's history, I'd say that releasing live service games only to then abandon them shortly thereafter seemed to be a common occurrence with this developer. Which leads us to the current day with the day before, where it seems like the developers oversold and falsely advertised an entirely different product than what we got with their early access launch. Firstly and most notably, Fntastic advertised that the day before would be an, quote, open world survival MMO. It even still says that on its very own Steam store page. And the developers kept claiming this narrative from the moment this game was revealed to the release of the early access.
The Day Before offers a uniquely reimagined journey into post-apocalyptic MMO open-world survival. Post-apocalyptic MMO open-world survival.
But we would eventually come to find out that this game wasn't any of that, like at all. The Day Before was actually just a lobby-based extraction shooter with a base building component. Think of the Division's Dark Zone with a hunger bar and you basically get this game. And what's funny about this is that the community manager explicitly stated that this game would not be an extraction shooter multiple times. Well, I guess that was just all one big fat lie. Also, according to this article I found on the Gaming Revolution, apparently the max lobby size for the entire map is 32 players. Now, I don't know how accurate this article is or if it's true at all, but it certainly does feel like it because this map feels devoid of any players for a game that's supposed to be a, quote, MMO. When I played the game, there were about 9,000 or so players online at the time, and let me tell you, I did not see anywhere close to 9,000 players at any given moment. Also, the Day Before is very clearly not an open world game because the map is pretty limited and quite small, meaning that even the entire genre that Fntastic said this game would be is an utterly complete lie. It's not exactly a good look for Fntastic when the most basic information about this game turns out to be completely false. But that's not all that they've lied about, because in their reveal trailer, they had a lot of features in it that just straight up doesn't exist in the game. Like being able to drive vehicles, or encountering hordes of zombies, or how even proximity chat. Many of these major core features they showed just simply do not exist in the game. And there's a whole host of missing features that this one Reddit user so diligently compiled for us into this one ginormous post on the Day Before subreddit, which is on fire by the way. And this is pretty damning evidence that shows just how much Fntastic really lied to everybody. What's also funny is that apparently they've stated that they've been working on this game for over 5 years.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
But according to that same Reddit user, they found evidence that suggests otherwise. You see, according to these business filings, Fntastic didn't incorporate their company until October of 2021. And if they've truly been working on this game for 5 years now, then that would mean that they would have started development around late 2018 to 2019. But as we just went over earlier, they were working on Dead Dozen and another title back in 2018. Then they moved on to Prop Night, which released back in December of 2021. So unless Fntastic had the manpower of a AAA studio to work on multiple projects at the same time, there's no way they would be able to work on the Day Before and these 3 projects simultaneously. The logical conclusion to this evidence is that Fntastic didn't actually start development for the Day Before until late 2021 or early 2022, which lines up with the timeline because it's right after they released Prop Night, and that's also around the time that they've officially established themselves as Fntastic Game Studios. So the claim that they've been working on the Day Before for 5 years is most likely false. And I speculate the reason why they said 5 years is because Fntastic probably counted the development time for Dead Dozen as the same development time for the Day Before, since these 2 games were pretty similar in concept. They're both multiplayer zombie survival games, and Dead Dozen never officially released, so might as well lump that in with the Day Before because nobody will notice. That's probably the level of mental gymnastics they've done in order to exaggerate their statement, but of course, this is just pure speculation on my part. Anyways, according to that same Reddit post, yeah, I know it's a really good post, apparently the Day Before is also a complete asset flip from the Unreal Engine store. Now, I don't know how accurate this section of the post is, but based on what I've personally seen from my own gameplay, this post aligns with my own suspicion that the majority of the assets in this game were purchased pre-built assets from the Unreal Engine marketplace. And this post goes further into detail by listing out literally everything that was purchased from the Unreal Engine store. It's not just 1 or 2 things that were purchased, and I mean there's nothing wrong with that because it's pretty normal for game developers to do it for small mundane assets in order to save time. But Fntastic didn't just purchase a couple of assets, they bought hundreds of them. Meaning that this entire game, if not a large majority of it, is comprised of pre-built and pre-purchased assets, which makes sense as to why it was missing so many features with the early access release. And that was because the devs probably couldn't find the right asset pack to work with this game. But guys, I thought the devs were pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into this project for over 5 years now. They're just a small indie studio that just wanted to put all their heart and soul into the Day Before. Please don't call our game a scam. Yeah bro, I'm sure the devs put so much heart and soul when they were entering their credit card info into the Unreal Engine store. Okay, so let's just look past all the shady mumbo jumbo these devs did in the past and just look at how the game actually plays, because who knows, maybe the gameplay could be amazing despite the devs not knowing how to code. But unfortunately, to absolutely nobody's surprise, the day before plays like complete trash. First of all, the game is horribly optimized for PC, even though that's the only platform this is on. There's constant lag spikes, stuttering, rubber banding, delayed hit registration, you name it. While I was struggling to fight my own boredom, the servers were struggling to run smoothly for even 30 seconds. These servers were clearly not capable of holding this many players on at once, and you can most definitely feel it when shooting your gun because whenever you hit anything, it takes a good second or two for the bullet to actually register. Not to mention the horrible lag spikes you get when walking around the city. Like, how is it this bad? There's nothing happening on my screen and the game is still chugging slower than molasses. This is probably because when the devs purchased the assets, they didn't bother to optimize them and they just stuck them into the game without caring about performance one bit. Now obviously this is just conjecture, but with these devs, I wouldn't really put it past them. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this game is not an open world survival MMO, but instead it's a lobby-based extraction shooter with some survival elements thrown in. But the funny thing is that there's no real reason why this game needs to have survival elements in it, because whenever you get hungry or thirsty, you can just extract back to HQ and you'll be completely fine. There's never any consequence for not managing your hunger or thirst because you can just evacuate and fill it back up. This whole system feels like it was just added because the devs said that this was a survival game and survival games need hunger and thirst, even though this game doesn't play like a survival game at all. Anyways, whenever you enter a server, you join a random hub instance where you can buy all your weapons and food and stuff to prepare for the outside world. There's also a base building component to this game where you can build a house and decorate it with furniture. It's pretty basic, but it's functional, I guess. So now let's get into the actual gameplay loop. When you decide to go out into the world, you'll spawn in a completely random area and your goal is to loot and scavenge for items inside containers all over the map. Then when you feel like leaving, you go to an extraction point and leave carrying your items and loot with you. That's it. The problem with this gameplay loop is that it's so uninteresting and tedious that you'll get bored within the first 30 minutes of playing this game. The majority of the time, you're just walking around in an extremely empty city looking through crates and containers for random useless junk to sell back at the hideout. Oh look, after rummaging through 15 containers, I found a 4th set of pliers, a wrench, and a used computer fan. Wow, what interesting and engaging loot.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
And when I said the city was extremely empty, I wasn't being hyperbolic. This city is completely lifeless, and yeah, I know it's supposed to be a post-apocalyptic place that's devoid of human life and infested with zombies all over, but it's not even infested with zombies because there are barely any around. Yeah, you'll occasionally find 1 or 2 zombies hanging out on the street, but you'll never encounter hordes of them like what was shown in the trailers. I think the most amount of zombies I've ever encountered at the same time was 3, and that's because I purposely ran around the city to see how many zombies I could attract. For what's supposed to be a zombie survival game, the day before is really lacking in, the zombie part of it. And not only that, but these zombies are hilariously the most harmless zombies I've ever seen in any video game because they're just extremely weak and slow. You can literally walk backwards from a zombie and it will still never be able to kill you because their swipes will still miss you. That's how useless the zombies are in this game.
Hit me, hit me, hit me, hit me. You can't. Reach me with that hand. Reach me with that hand. Reach me with that hand. You cannot.
And as for the players, you'll also rarely encounter anyone because there's allegedly only 32 players within this big giant map instance. So for most of the game, you'll be looting random containers for useless junk in an empty city with very few zombies and even fewer players. That's pretty much it. The gameplay is so bare bones and lethargic that there's not really much more to talk about other than a numerous amount of basic features that a game like this should have but doesn't for some reason. Like proximity chat, or the ability to mantle onto ledges, or even simply a melee attack in a zombie game. Like, how do the devs forget about melee attacks in a zombie game? The day before is legit missing staple features in other post-apocalyptic zombie survival games and it has absolutely nothing to show for it. This game is just a worse version of other zombie survival games on the market with no redeeming value whatsoever. I know this is supposed to be a, quote, early access game, but the devs literally advertised so many features that just straight up never existed in the version that we got today. And that's how we ended up with this sad and pathetic product that was overhyped and vastly underdelivered. Overall, the day before's whole situation is a case study on just how bad the gaming industry's gotten now, with the developers having a history of creating mediocre multiplayer games, then shortly abandoning them afterwards, to Fntastic hyping up the day before with loads of false marketing which pushed them to the #2 most wanted game on Steam for a time, to the numerous fans of the game that still vehemently defend this game no matter how much evidence there is proving that the devs were scammers, or the devs just simply not delivering on most of the features that they promised. All of this culminated into an absolute disaster of epic proportions, which I'm gonna be honest was really entertaining to see go down. But even though Fntastic tried to pull a fast one on the gaming community, most people saw through this facade and rightfully called out this scam for what it is. And it seems like this studio is getting the justice that it deserves, so the story does have a happy ending after all. And to Fntastic Game Studios, goodbye and good riddance, you will not be missed. But that's just my opinion. What do you think? Do you agree or disagree? Let me know down below and make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more content in the future. See ya.